After Dante had a head malfunction, they and the others needed to catch up with aeng-du and get closer to resolving this. At the top floor, a member of the Kurokumo clan was trying to use the elevator, only to find out that it was broken. This made him nervous. Dante saw that he was unlike any others encountered in that building. He hoped that it was quiet in there and that things stays put. He checked his pocket watch as though he was expecting something awful to come out from that door. aeng-du said, "He is." Nasot saw that his garb matches the Kurokumo clan's standard outfit template. That he's also a relevant individual in this case, and his outfit shows that he's on a higher rank than any foe that they've defeated on the way there. aeng-du stepped forward, not even wanting to, or even waiting to suggest, okay, let's start that again. She's not bothering to suggest waiting for a bit to come up with strategy. So she charged at him, identifying her opponent as a captain of the Kurokumo clan. This surprised him. She asked him if he wished to hunt the blade lineage. So she's standing before him and told him to face her blade. The captain understood that all of his forces between the outside and him are dead if she's there. He'd toss her into that office if he could, but the merchandise is still in there. He then expressed his concern, not to mention annoyance at this situation. He understood that he had no choice but to fight, requesting that she allow him to introduce himself, then she can tell him who she is. He is Jun, captain of those that she killed. aeng-du introduced herself as a follower of mentor bamboo-hatted Kim. This caused all to fall silent, as calm as the winter dawn. The two warriors, blades drawn, they began to take cautious steps, attempting to gauge the distance between each other. There was a sudden flash. When Dante realized what was going on, they suddenly switched sides, facing away from each other. The outcome of this clash was that aeng-du collapsed. Jun was less than impressed. Sinclair was concerned about aeng-du. She appeared to be beaten. She fell to her knees. But apparently Jun was just getting started, disappointed with what happened. He was surprised that aeng-du had any energy left of that attack. She was clearly annoyed by this. Dante understood that she's been fighting the Kurokumo clan on the front lines before they even had a chance to catch up. So that would certainly explain why she's exhausted. Otis reminded them that she was also on the verge of death not so long ago. She overexerted herself. Jun asked if they were going to fight him as well, seeing it as hardly fair, him against all of them. Since when did your kind care about playing fair? As you prey on travelers, forcing them to pay up or mutilate them. Not caring whether they're armed or not. He rested his blade on his shoulder with an annoyed scowl. It was clear that he wouldn't go down easily. Dante didn't like that they were ganging up on that one guy. Jun complained about Dante's clock for a head, thinking that it's a local T-Corp clock-shaped prosthetic fashion. He asked if that clock head was on time. Heathcliff told him that the clock wasn't for telling the time. and June saw it as pointless to decapitate themselves for such a useless clock. Dante didn't know what to say about this. June asked if any of them had a timepiece, as his watch broke again. They all wordlessly surrounded June, asking if any of them was wearing a watch. Asking if they're insane, going somewhere without some form of timepiece. June, Don Quixote is insane. The others, well, that depends on who you talk to. Don Quixote said even if she did, she wouldn't show it to him. This really annoyed the time-conscious captain of the Kurokumo clan. He'll be in deep if he lets anyone in there anyway, provoking them into coming and get him, threatening to cut them down if it's the last thing he does, and at that point, the battle began. A few of his forces were with him. He and them were the last line of defense against the damned dozen. He was also a strong counterattacker, where he was motivated by those still alive. He was skilled in the art of making his enemy bleed. Piercing attacks were the least effective against him, but ironically, slashing attacks would cause more damage. It was a tougher battle, but they were able to kill his underlings and take him alive. Aeng-du then decided to interrogate him, having somewhat recovered as the others fought Jun. She bound him with a rope before throwing him to the ground. Jun felt that, having received injuries from the previous battle, yes, he felt pain. Aeng-du didn't expect that a mere captain to know why the Kurokumo clan had put a bounty on the heads of the Blade lineage, but she couldn't quite place the reason why he's standing guard before that room. It's as though they're not trying to keep them out, but to keep what's within that room inside it. To protect her mentor from them. Not just Jun, all they fought and killed. Protected what was on the top floor with their lives. Jun then decided to tell them why. Apparently they're the victims here. Aeng-du wanted to know what he was protecting. What he meant by that. Jun was annoyed by her ignorance, seeing that the Blade lineage had a way of pushing his buttons. They weren't part of the party hunting them down. That wasn't any of his business. There are a number of syndicates and organizations unlucky enough to be on the Thumb's list. Their run-in was just a coincidence. Jun's group was ordered by the Thumb to stand guard next to a black stairwell there. That was all. Everyone was on edge because they were supposed to transport it elsewhere pretty soon. That's when the Blade lineage appeared out of nowhere, likely from the library. This confused Aeng-du. Then she realized that this was where her mentor awakened. Jun noting that she knew more than him about this. He hadn't heard of tech that could do that, believing that they're using a singularity. The Blade lineage never had a chance. The Kurokumo clan had the numericals advantage. That would explain how an urban plague-level syndicate could take down an urban nightmare-level syndicate, such as the Blade lineage. Them being scattered certainly didn't help, as it would make picking them off even easier. And Aeng-du couldn't argue against that. They had them cornered in that building. They had no trouble cutting them down until only 3 remained. Then all of a sudden, bamboo-hatted Kim's eye suddenly started to glow blue, and He cut down everyone around him, while making one-sided laughter. Honestly, did they kill Autistic Skeletor by any chance? And so, decided to give them a bad time? Are we in the Japan Tale AU? Anyway, aeng-du wanted to know what happened next, not liking where this was going. Jun confirmed her fears. He was indiscriminate with who he cut down. Neither side was safe from him. So as the captain, he saw that the lives of his underlings were his responsibility, and so he saved those that he could. He stayed behind and guarded the door, while the others guarded the entrance to the building. Then he realized that the delivery deadline is coming up. He knows that he's... The Thumb do not tolerate failure. He knows that the punishment will be more severe than him cutting off a finger or two. I'm thinking that it'll involve him cutting his genitals off. Something like that. Then aeng-du, with a dark look, walked up to him. She struck Jun in the back of the neck with swift precision, and he was dropped on the floor. Don Quixote protested at this, as he was already subdued. She told her that she just knocked him out cold. He would have caused them trouble if they attempted to enter that room if he was still conscious. She needed to talk with her mentor, see him with her own eyes. Heathcliff was confused by her insane idea, as he'll cut down anyone that gets too close. She refused to believe this. Faust informed Dante that they can tell from the intel gathered from Jun that Dante knew, as they could sense a powerful aura coming from that door. aeng-du understood that coming from her mentor. Her hands were trembling as her hands wrapped around the doorknob. Utis understood that they must prepare for battle. aeng-du refused to believe that Bamboo-Hatted Kim would do any such thing. She slammed the door open, only to come face to face with a distortion. What was Bamboo-Hatted Kim? Bamboo-Hatted Kim was silent, yet he didn't do anything. aeng-du asked what this was. He remained silent. She recognized those wounds. They were his techniques. She was sickened that he could put his blade to his own. Yet despite all this, he remained silent. Utis saw it as pointless to try and talk to him. The pitch-black flames lingered behind him. Something devoured him. There was something in his eyes, fiendish malevolence. Dante could clearly sense this. This was a distortion. aeng-du demanded that he cease his beastly howls and talk to her. To say something, Heathcliff told her not to get too close. Bamboo-Hatted Kim reacted to her getting too close, unsheathing his blade in a blink of an eye, as he sensed something entering his range. aeng-du recognized this stance, understanding that he was going to kill. Then Sinclair demanded that she get out of the way. aeng-du stood there, confused. Sinclair urgently hurled himself in her direction. Then Bamboo-Hatted Kim bisected the space that inhabited her with his blade. As Sinclair entered the range of the distortion, this happened, and Dante understood that they had to suppress it. They then raised their weapons. when fighting the mentor of the Blade lineage. He slashes his way to victory, mostly causing bleed and gaining poise, even gaining poise when evading attacks successfully. He can also cause paralysis, along with weakening resistance to his attacks and even strengthening his own. Ironically, he's weak to slashing himself, along with wrath, and especially pride. Yes, it usually comes before a fall, doesn't it? Things to keep to a minimum against him are blunt lust and gloom. He's resistant to those. After seemingly defeating Bamboo-Hatted Kim, he laughed and unsheathed his blade. He kneeled and caught his breath. Then something started to shimmer behind him. Faust recognized it as a mirror dungeon of the Fathoms. Gregor remembered that it was like Ding Dong's Bar and Friars. Sinclair corrected him by saying it's Yun Bong's. Bamboo-Hatted Kim seemed uninterested. Masot noted that he had already entered the dungeon. Heathcliff understanding that they've got to follow that bloke. Dante confirmed this as they were ordered to secure the distortion as well, so Dante then remembered that the monolith was also of interest. It has to be there somewhere as well. Aeng-du wanted to follow as well. She wasn't taking it well, yet was still determined to see this through. Utis ordered their advance, and then Aeng-du recognized where they were. A place with an Eastern Asian architecture and a clear sky. Yi Sang confirmed this. Where they were resembled District 19. Aeng-du recognized it as a specific location there, considering this was the Fathoms of Ego. It was based on the memories of Bamboo-Hatted Kim. Yi Sang asked if there was any part of his past that she was aware of. She knew nothing in detail. She couldn't give an account of the past based on third-hand accounts. Yi Sang understood. Then Aeng-du continued in a morose tone. She noted that when he appeared so suddenly at that building, he didn't have any trouble cutting down the Kurokumo clan. He was flanked by competent people. No matter how many were sent against him, only one of their officers could give him any trouble. He could cut down 100 on his own, but not all that accompanied him were as powerful as him. His capabilities were far beyond their own. The others fell, one by one, before the endless onslaught of the Kurokumo clan. It reminded him of a tragic event in the past. This shook him to the core, Faust noting that it fits numerous criteria that make it ripe for distortion manifestation. He was in a receptive state to the monolith's influence as well. Aeng-du understood how he was beholden to his blade like a fiend. Yet, she was unsure. How could he? They continued as she kept talking to herself. It was silent, save for the sound of their shoes lightly pressing into the soft soil beneath their feet. Within the Fathoms of Ego, linked to the memories of Bamboo-Hatted Kim, we get a glimpse of what the nest of District 19 is like. A likely preview of things to come in Chapter 7. The Damned Dozen fought the Kurokumo clan. Within it, echoes of the recent past, including Kurokumo Captain Jun. Also, there were some encounters. Some that appeared human, others that were clearly not. And I'm not just talking about the repeat battles against the Pecatulum. The recently evolved ones, I meant. Yes, here are the encounters that can be encountered. They encountered 2 from the Kurokumo clan, telling some people that it's their turf, and asking if it's hard for them to understand that they have to pay the toll to use their road. Aeng-du remarks that this was enough for them to tread on their territory as well, unable to hide her indignation, gritting her teeth. If they decided to turn a blind eye, one of the sinners muttered, "Another day, another mugging in the city." Like the Heathcliff, as in the past, he was likely to be one of those that did the mugging. Aeng-du pleaded for them to do something, yet didn't step forward. They were avoiding any unnecessary battles in order to survive the coming challenges and face bamboo-hatted Kim. This was distasteful for those that ignored this regardless, and all lost 20 SP. If they chose to save them, and the check fails, they managed to drive them away. A grueling battle happened. The Chosen and Aeng-du were successful in driving them away, but Aeng-du was injured due to her not fully recovering, and the Chosen received more damage while protecting her. Aeng-du apologized She apologized for causing this inconvenience, feeling shame for this. The Chosen would receive 30 HP damage for this. If the check passed, the same happened, but they weren't damaged because of this. Aeng-du then thanked the Chosen and was glad to help, and the Chosen would be healed 30 SP. Regardless, after that, those being tormented by the Kurokumo clan bowed and thanked them. Then they noticed that they weren't dressed as locals, asking who they were. If told that they were just passing by, this puzzled them, due to the many people behind them. Despite this, they thanked them and wished them safe travels, wanting to leave before more Kurokumo clans showed up. If told that they were from with the Blade lineage, and the checks passed, this made them their pants, making them kneel before them. They begged for mercy, to not kill them. Despite trying to calm them, they refused to listen, and they handed a book, a filled ledger with black covers. They stayed on their knees, and the sinners decided to leave. They gained the Black Ledger EGO gift, which granted random resources equal to the number of enemies at the start of an encounter, unless there was 4 or more Blade lineage or Kurokumo clan identities. In that case, they receive resources for the least owned affinity. If the check fails, they thought that it was a nasty joke, which made the Chosen feel awkward. They thanked the Chosen regardless, but warned not to say that they're with the Blade lineage even as a joke, as who knows what would happen. This would lead to the Chosen receiving 10 SP damage. In a different encounter, in a bustling tavern, there was a good mood overall. A trio was arguing and pointing fingers at each other. One argued for a blade being made for cutting, so the right way to use it is to slash with it. Another argued that it's better to stab with all your might to make a foe fall. The third didn't think so. So as all that would do is them off, and they'll be back on their feet. They said that they should smack their skulls with the blunt end of the hilt of the scabbard. That'll knock them down 2 days to get up. They then turned in the direction of the sinners and could see that they knew how to use their weapons. asking what's the best way to wield their sword. If they answer that the different damage types each has their uses, they saw that as a textbook answer. This frustrates them. They weren't serious about that. It was just a fun topic to argue while they drank sake. All they did was kill the mood. And the trio told them to clear off. If told that slashing is the best way to go when wielding a blade, if the check succeeds, one of them raised a cup to this. He wasn't claiming that the other methods were inferior. He was claiming that a blade, a weapon with an edge, was made to cut things. The other two agreed with this. They saw that it applied to the blade part, and the others saw a decapitation as not that different to breaking the skull open. This caused the first one to hand the rusted hilt Egeo gift, which granted 1 slash power-up at each turn for all allies, unless they're either Blade Lineage or Kurokoma clan. In that case, they gain 2 slash power-up instead of just 1. If the check failed, the cup was raised, yet they noticed that the Chosen wasn't honest about their true beliefs. The other two told them not to scare the Chosen. Seeing that a piercing strike was too much to deny, or a blunt object striking and cracking open a skull was something that you can't get enough of. This heals the Chosen for 30 HP. Another encounter involved an unknown abnormality, which involved an odd, thick layer of mist descending all around them. One of them heard about a story about taking a nightly stroll where a clueless traveller heedlessly wandered into a haze like that and found themselves before an otherworldly being. This made them argue with each other, and then something hazy was in their way. Something that's dancing. Something dressed in white. Dancing gracefully before them, with a large blade in hand. When they met its gaze, or at least that's how it appeared, a sheathed blade materialized in their hand. If they chose to leave the sword, they realized that they said, well, nothing was said about engaging abnormalities. Avoid battles with unknown entities. This caused it to make a weeping laughter, and all would lose 10 SP. If assuming a stance like they were about to draw the sword, and the check passed, after taking a moment to steady their breathing, the Chosen unsheathes the blade and slices it before them. In the blink of an eye, it giggled as it disappeared, finding this funny, and the fractured blade Egeo gift was granted, which inflicted 2 more bleed against the enemy once per encounter. Unless they're Kurokuma clan identities. In that case, while inflicting damage for the first time, an additional 4 bleed with 4 count would be inflicted. If the sword was unsheathed and held at the side, and the check passed, they did so effortlessly, throwing the scabbard away, gently lowering it to the side. The tip pointed towards the ground. This made the abnormality giggle as it disappeared, finding it funny, and it left behind the broken blade Egeo gift. This dealt additional damage, based on the amount of poise divided by 3 in pride damage. Unless they're blade lineage, in that case the additional damage would be poise divided by 2 in pride damage. If the check failed in both cases, the same happens, except the blade drops to the floor as they're trying to unsheath the blade. The Chosen was holding the sword backwards, slicing their own palm, making the abnormality disappear, while the others tried to stop the bleeding. The Chosen would lose 20 HP and 20 SP because of this. When encountering a pair of voices walking alongside a stone fence, two travellers carrying blades were talking. One was pitying the people there, while the other noted that the decision of a wing was absolute for its feathers. Little can be done about it. The two were clearly not from around there. They complain how the Kurokuma clan were allowed in there. Clearly the wing only cares about fluttering. Nothing else matters. Which is par for the course for S-Corp from what I've heard about them. They noticed the sinners and asked them, understanding that they are not Kurokuma clan, asking what they think of the current climate. If said that while it's a pity, they have no thoughts about this. They conceded that a force must be free, although pity was a sin of its own. If told that it's the city, it's what happens to small fries who get mixed up in large-scale conflicts. And if the check passed, this made one of them snicker, seeing wisdom in this, seeing musings as insignificant in the city. He then tore the tassel from his weapon and handed it to them, which showed that the answer was enjoyable, saying that if they're in conflict with the blade lineage, show them that. It will help them out. The red tassel Egeo gift that was given to them changes the slash resistance to 0.3 if the resistance is 1.5 or lower. If the check failed, they agreed, but they didn't see them as wise or capable enough to speak such wisdom from the heart. This caused the Chosen to suffer 20 SP damage. In another place, shimmering blue letters float before them. The way they're ordered made it difficult to comprehend. To say what is right and what is wrong is not right, but not to say that wrong is right and right is wrong is not wrong, and to say that what is right and what is wrong is in turn to say that wrong is right. If asked if it's really important to tell which is which, it's more important to say what really matters. And the check passed, the letters fade away, and joy appears in their place. And this word changes into a ragged bamboo hat Egeo gift. At the start of the encounter, it activates when there are 3 or more with blade lineage identities, which grants all allies 50% more slash damage, and all blade lineage with poise have a 100% chance critical rates. Now that's convenient. Guaranteed critical damage. If there's poise. If the check fails, the letters change to rough and they fade away. Clearly not the answer that they wanted. And if said that what is right, the blue letters slowly fade away and reveal pleasure, which changes into an old dopper robe Egeo gift, which does the same thing as the ragged bamboo hat, except instead of the critical rates being 100%, it grants 1 more coin power, and skills of a single coin gain 3 more power. It also does something to the Mentor Mesot identity, where Yield My Flesh has power reduced by 12, where To Claim My Bones will deal 50% more damage. However, if this check fails, the word that's revealed is sorrow, which fades away, clearly not the answer that they wanted. There is also the possibility to fuse gifts to make a stronger one. If the rusted hilt is fused with the fractured blade, then it makes the Sublimity Egeo gift, which activates its effect with 3 or more Kurokuma clan identities. All allies would gain 2 slash power and deal 35% more damage. which also allows Kurokuma clan identities to inflict an additional 4 bleed and 4 counts when damaging a target for the first time. If the rusted hilt and a broken blade is fused, however, it makes unbending, which does the same for the blade lineage identities, except instead of bleed, it deals additional pride damage equal to the poise potency whenever a blade lineage identity deals critical hits. Oh yes, and the additional slash and damage applies to blade lineage identities instead of Kurokuma clan identities. Once they caught up to the partially distorted mentor, Dante saw something behind him and understood what it was. Faust identified it as the monolith, which is not a piece of alien technology that evolved humans to develop sentience in this setting. It entered his fathoms of ego the moment it imbued Bamboo-Hatted Kim with strength. Aeng-du identified the location as the manor where the mentor's last client resided before they were forced to flee District 19. She remarked about the massacre. She had a dark look when she commented on the carnage of his memory, asking if it's been haunting his dreams in his waking hours for so long. Yet the deaths of the others, the tears were flowing from her eyes at this point. Then Dante saw a vision of the past, Bamboo-Hatted Kim's past to be more precise. He heard a somber voice, drenched with woe, which echoed in his head. He said,
"For a fleeting moment, I once had this thing people called honor. Vile people, whose hearts are consumed by evil, oft approach virtuous officials to seek harm, and I considered it an honorable deed to be a protector of the virtuous, to hew those that sought harm against them. Yet, to be virtuous in a world of the vicious was to be prey to this merciless world. And before such overwhelming might of the vicious, the irreparably corrupt officials, my strength was inconsequential. I had little choice but to leave Escorb, cradling my broken spirit alongside my fellows. I have left my scarred honor behind in the land of my failure. We became vagabonds, lost, wandering, and weary. Aimless drifters without a place to call their home. Even their faith in my decision to leave began to crumble piece by piece. So did my faith in myself. I began to fall apart. I have already failed once. What's there to say that I am not failing my dear fellows once again? The least I could do is to help them lead a stable life. Yet that invitation I received only led them to their demise. In the end, I failed my mission. I failed my honor. I failed my dear fellows. Again, I am returned to the land of my failure.
The voice of the fully distorted Bamboo-Hatted Kim continued to murmur, but it had devolved into nothing but a low growl, a quiet and incoherent rumbling. Dante couldn't help but feel sympathetic to this suffocatingly painful past. This is why they needed to face him, to free him from that distortion. They told the others that they're putting an end to this right there, right now. Utis agreed. They had no choice in this. Aeng-du had grown too agitated to function properly in that battle. It's up to them to get past his Yang-jium, or Korean longsword. As for the story of Bamboo-Hatted Kim, I can piece it together based on Blade lineage mentor Miss Salt's identity and what is known so far. Bamboo-Hatted Kim was a protector, and the Blade lineage were professional bodyguards in District 19, for those that hired them, specifically within its nest. In his case, he was a protector for a second state councillor, and had been for 7 years and 4 months, who intended to present an appeal, which contained the hideous conspiracies, heinous deeds, and studies that have been conducted in secret. In short, he wanted to purge the corruption within the nest of District 19, and he needed Bamboo-Hatted Kim to protect him long enough for him to do so, as should the contents of his appeal be made public, it would shake S-Corp to its roots. But, despite his best efforts, he failed his master. It was one man versus the resources of a wing. They clearly consider concepts such as kindness, mercy, and integrity as weaknesses, and sought to purge anyone that might stand in their way. Well, they consider them weaknesses even by the city's standards. That's saying a lot, isn't it? His master was also killed in a way that couldn't be traced, at least not easily, so it could be a Shi Association affiliate that used unconventional methods, such as one that dealt in poisons or toxins that could be found anywhere in the city, as easily as it could be a syndicate that dealt with things that are only illegal if they get caught. Bamboo-Hatted Kim, of course, knew who killed him. It was the third state councillor, his political enemy, the one that would either gain the most or lose the least from the second state councillor's death. He then kills the third state councillor's guards, while letting the third state councillor live, warning them that he would return once he found someone capable of purging the corruption of that district. District 19 was ruled by the royal court, to whom tradition was held almost as sacred, and those that broke the taboos of that district would meet the Cha-Unokun, their own taboo hunters. They're tenacious, and borders had no meaning to them. They hunt down those that flee judgment or break taboos. But not long after Bamboo-Hatted Kim left, the third state councillor sought out the best Cha-Unokun in the nest, ordering them to arrest anyone who ever had ties to Bamboo-Hatted Kim. And that was after threatening the death of his own relatives, along with that, if he was killed by Bamboo-Hatted Kim there and then. Well, I don't think it matters now, as by the time the Cha-Unokun were called to look for them, Bamboo-Hatted Kim and his Blade lineage would have already fled. They were forced to exist as a nomadic syndicate. Not a lot has changed with his attacks, as they can still cause a combination of bleed, generate poise, along with cause paralysis, weaken targets against slash, and also strengthen his own attacks, but he also has a potent counter that can hit multiple times and give him a buff to damage and defense. He also has an attack that can use the growing resentment that builds up to heal himself, and also fixed damage based on the same value. As far as strengths and weaknesses are concerned, not a lot has changed. He's still weak to slash, wrath, and pride. He's still strong to blunt, lust, and gloom, but he's also resistant to sloth as well. Sinking damage debuffs his defense. 5 times a turn. The growing resentment also disappears each turn until after HP is at 20% or lower. All that's left now is to deal with the aftermath. Until next time.
Hail the rabbits!